Hello again, everyone. I'm Professor Jack Dempsey. Actually, I should say writer Jack Dempsey and historian. Today is Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. And a year ago this month, interestingly, I was last speaking with my guest today, Nina Olff, wonderful poet whose works many people on YouTube, here on YouTube, have enjoyed. And we're here to talk about some new work that she's laying out. It's very interesting. It's been a very productive year for Nina, as you're about to hear. She writes in so many multi dimensions of human and natural and cultural being that it's really a mind stretcher to read and to listen to her work. So please, you're most welcome, and I'm glad that you're here to hear some of those works today. Here's a quick biographical sketch of Nina. She was born in Manhattan, New York. Nina Lydia Olff, AOLF. She grew up in Brooklyn's Brownsville during the 1960s and traveling often between New York City and the family farm in upstate New York. She wrote her first poem at age 8. She has published poems in books and journals and a book of poetry called American Heritage, Many Tribes, Many Nations from Sea Venture Press in 2016. Her influences are manifold: Black rodeo, Native American powwows. Her teachers have included the Mohawk Skywalkers who hung out with her dad, and her Jewish mother, a very powerful woman who was active in civil rights. Nina's grandfather from Suriname and married to her Black Indian grandmother was a strong influence too on the family farm, as was her New York City Jewish Bohemian grandmother. She's very proud of all those influences, and I don't blame her for a minute, and you'll hear them all in her work. So finally, living in Massachusetts for the past 25 years, Nina is also a multi-ethnic visual artist, a researcher, a curriculum advisor, and an educator who enjoys her time with her grandson. So Nina, welcome. Thank you again for sharing this time with me today, and so looking forward to some new work. What's first of all on your mind that you'd like to talk about?
Well, thanks, Jack, for the introduction. But you know what? I've been living in Massachusetts since 1983, but I'm still a New Yorker. I feel very out of place here. So
Yeah.
it's been more than 20 years or 25 years, but
Ah.
yeah. Um, so I've been working on a new manuscript that is really one long poem, and I'll read from that. It's the title of the manuscript is Precession. And I want to acknowledge um, influences on me. Barbara Moore, is that how you say her name? Who
Yes.
wrote The Great Cosmic Goddess. Um,
Great
and
Cosmic Mother.
also, yeah, Great Cosmic Mother, sorry. And also Graham Hancock, who I love, who had a series called Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix. But you can also find his stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
He presents many theories about survivors of the Ice Age who helped the Mayans, the Egyptians, all over the world. Uh, a mountain site in Indonesia that predates that. Yeah, that's coming from about 12,500 years ago when there was a meteor shower all over the earth, and there was fire and flooding, and it looked like snakes. That's where the serpent themes come in, falling from the sky. Anyway, he's influenced me tremendously, and I recommend people check out his work. And
Yeah, and he has come a long way, Graham Hancock, in the substantiation of his claims. In other
yes,
words, he has
yes,
gone all over the world, scuba diving, mountain climbing, descending into volcanic craters, looking at ancient landscapes again with a fresh eye. And he has even, I mean, folks, get your map of North America and take a new look at Hudson's Bay. You know what
yeah,
Hudson's Bay is? It's actually one of the biggest meteor craters on Earth.
yeah,
And this had a lot to do, Hancock claims, with the flood, with the end of the Ice Age, the melting of the glaciers, and the rising of the seas to cover up all kinds of landscapes around the world, which are, again, absolutely physically substantial, and they predate anything that we have on what's called historical record. So it's not surprising that Nina would think in the terms of, I wanted to clarify the title of your book, Nina, which is Precession,
Oh, yeah, that's what, I'm sorry.
Precession,
Thank you.
that long, vastly long cosmic
Yes.
cycle of the tiltage of the Earth relative to the stars in the galaxy. And these are the kinds of cycles that Nina thinks in. And also, it's interesting, too, quick footnote, that she mentions Barbara Moore as an influence. I've written the only biography, vetted biography of Barbara Moore that's on my website, ancientlights.org. And I tracked down some of her influences and her accreditations of where her teachers were. One was her mother teaching her piano, and one was her love of animals. And Barbara Moore's work is this incredible landscape of different voices and different dimensions and the interpenetrations among all living things. And she created a kind of a new language for how we register and can hear and understand those voices. So Nina is right in the mainstream of cutting edge poetry. I'm not even going to say women's poetry or feminist poetry, just poetry. That's how strong her work has been. And ever since we met a couple of years ago on a podcast about another subject, Nina and I have been in touch, and I've been watching her grow like nobody else that I see. So, Nina, again, anything you'd like to go on with emphasizing, or I'll invite you
Well,
to read a work or whatever.
okay. Thank you for pointing out that it's precession. I have to say, I have a bit of a stomach ache, so I'm not at my best. Um, well, it's not procession, it's precession. And that did come from what I learned from Graham Hancock. So I'll read, and this is in a draft form. I'll read some of the poems from this latest manuscript. Okay, the first poem, the beginning poem, is Soundscape.
Okay.
Soundscape. The arrival of sound waves in the oral time difference, compression and fluctuation, moving like a sloth or a penguin underwater, a vibration that propagates feeling and memory. How many times have you entered a room and heard a song that stayed with you for 35 years, popped up in a moment of unhatched boredom and seeming nothingness? The first drum heartbeat you heard in your mother's womb that wrapped you in the blanket of soft universe in melody, and the rhythm that penetrated the folds in the brain, awakens legs, moving them onto the dance floor. That's the beginning. And then I'm going to read a few more poems from that manuscript that is in progress. This one is The Time of the Cranes.
Before you go on, Nina, if I may,
Yeah.
I'd like to just point out one passage in the poem you just read, which really struck me. Uh, Compression and fluctuation, moving like a sloth or a penguin underwater. Zoom.
Yeah.
A vibration, it says, that propagates feeling and memory. She's talking about these almost indefinable places where messages reach us from
Yeah.
nature, from the natural world, the animal world, the extra human world, that makes us feel, that makes us remember strange things that we would think have not happened to us, but that we seem to have memories of. Is that what you're writing about in that, you think?
Yes, yes, yes. And the comparison of the sloth and penguins underwater are so fast, and the sloth is so slow. It doesn't matter the speed, the frequency, vibration, whatever the message gets through. Okay, so this
Yes,
next part, yeah.
and I just want to say, in the interstices of these different creatures' senses of time, a
Hmm.
sloth has a definitely different sense of time than a human being, and so
Yeah,
does a penguin, especially when it's flying through the underwater
yeah,
world in perfect harmony and in such
beautiful.
power with its environment. These are states that as it were, the human soul aspires to. It seems, in a way, and you're giving a
Yes,
voice to that.
yes. Thanks. Okay, this next one is Time of the Cranes. There is cruelty in time marching on, moving away from the now, but taking us with it, moving faster each year, The crane appears in an open field, like a slow, silent airplane, tucking its long wings in slow motion. Does she live forever or die with her mate? Did she see the moon in the daytime and sleep in a frozen world, swooping backwards to a warm lake in a gentle era? That's time of the crane. Time of
What
the
would you say?
cranes.
What would you say you're writing about there? I'd like to hear it in your own words, except for what you've just said.
Um, a better time on Earth than the present. Referencing a better time than now,
And
than
what would
this
it be
era.
that made it better?
Living in harmony with the natural world.
Do you know that's
Not,
the exact answer that came into my mind from hearing what you just said?
yeah, yeah.
That's what it's
Well,
all about. We are so out of harmony with everything around us. How can you possibly be happy?
I mean, I am too, even though I recognize it, the whole structure of my life and living in a city, whatever, it's hard to do that, but I recognize that we are not doing that.
Yep.
To
And
follow
I
up, yeah,
and I was being interviewed
I
by
have,
a fellow scholar a couple of years ago, and we were talking about the Minoans and how they would watch the night
mhm,
sky at night. That was the ancient world's version of television, you might say.
yeah,
And we
yeah,
we talked about how people that in those days they learned how to signify and mark and measure the solstices, the equinoxes, all the different great rhythms that flow
mhm,
around and flow through us. And we both, as it were, looked up and said, hey, you know what? Today is the summer solstice, June 21st. And neither of us could had any idea that this was going on, that the sun was completing another cycle of its growth. We don't see these things anymore, and how can we not be lost?
I can't even see the stars at night. And I
Yeah,
remember
in
the
the
last
city.
time I saw them, I was in Wellfleet, it was 1997 at night, full of stars, shooting stars. And then before that, I was in the Adirondacks when I was 15. So I was born in 55, so 1970. That's what we do. We'd get our blankets, lay down, and just watch the sky. Yeah, and you can't, there's so much pollution and aerosol spraying that I don't know, maybe in Crete you can see the sky, but I certainly can't. You see maybe Venus, maybe a few stars. Anyway,
I,
the
well, I was
next
just going to
poem.
say we have to go out of our way to reconnect with these things, and your poetry is one way of facilitating people to feel enough to be motivated to go out and experience this. A quick example with a Native American friend, I was at staying over his house one day and night. And
Yeah,
at night, he said, "Come on with me." And we go out into his field, a pasture on his farm,
yeah,
and we laid down on the earth, and all the stars of the universe were right
wow,
over our heads.
beautiful.
And he
Yeah.
said, "Now just look up at the stars and let go of yourself. Let go of yourself. What do you feel?" And after some time of, you could say, empty head, clearing my head and meditating on what my eyes were seeing, I felt as though I were falling upward.
Yeah.
I felt as if I were falling into and through the universe. And literally, physically, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
But we
magnificent
forget
feeling.
that. We
Yeah.
forget
Well,
completely our natural context.
you can't see it. I can't see it. I
Yeah.
can't see the stars. I actually asked for my birthday last year, I requested a friend of mine who had connections to the telescope at Harvard. I said, "Oh, I would love to see the Milky Way, but anyway, I'm still going to bug him. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
The next poem, Darkness, follow this theme. It's
Okay.
short. No news captions. Secret war against children. Families drowned by tears, trying to escape, bleeding in darkness. Shades of gray disappear. The audience applauds the set design. Sparkled and dazzling, sound effects without strings and wires. The flying monkeys are seen from the cheaper seats. while the orchestra in the pit continues to play Wagner for Sugar Plum Fairies. Wagner, actually Wagner. Yeah.
That's
So
quite a
that,
spectacle.
yeah, that references obviously the Nazis and what's going on now in various places, many places around the world.
And
I don't need to
and
say anything more about that. Yeah. I
and would you
mean,
say that this poem is about the spectator culture that we live in? This is
yes,
a nice
yes.
contrast to what we just talked about.
Yep.
Rather than being participants in being, we're just made
Hmm.
into spectators.
Yes, exactly. I hadn't thought of that, but yes, that encapsulates part of what the message is. Yes. The next poem is Death. Ah,
You're going awful fast here. You're reading these wonderful poems. I would just like to tease out a couple of their meanings. The second to
okay.
last lines here, the pit, the orchestra pit, continues to
Yeah.
play Wagner for Sugar Plum Fairies. Contrast Wagner, the epic, manly
Yeah,
music of
yeah.
the gods that fueled the war state of the Nazis and stuff, with Sugar Plum Fairies. That seems like the kind of smiley faced fascism that America is indulging in now.
Yeah, yeah. And I
This
can't
this this grandiose narrative that is actually feeding the most childish culture that was probably ever on the earth. And the great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said he used to be a real lover and fan of Wagner's music. He knew him personally. And eventually he wrote, as he felt that he was waking up, he said, if Wagner ever becomes the norm and the ideal of operatic and musical composition, you aren't going to believe the vulgarity, the stupidity, the costumes, the
mm,
thunder, the noise that this man makes, but it's not music. It's
interesting.
it's it's
Yeah. Well,
incredibly prophetic that where we have come.
and the Nutcracker, the Sugar Plum Fairies is reference to the Nutcracker, which
Yeah,
it is the sort of, you know, in middle class families or what was middle class families, you took your kid to see the Nutcracker. You know,
yeah.
that was like a benchmark or something that Americans did that was close to getting to like opera and classical music and pointing in that direction towards the arts, but not quite. It's gotten so watered down, you know. Anyway,
Yeah,
but
and there's also a further, deeper parodic element to that poem, in
mhm,
that if you evoke opera, well, 200 years ago and more, opera
mhm,
was a great community sharing of the latest music, the latest artistic performance. And
mhm,
there was a kind of a common culture around it. People would walk down the street whistling Mozart and so
yeah,
forth. And we have, with all these devices to bring us entertainment and supposedly help us with community, people are lonelier and poorer than ever.
yes, yes.
How is this happening, Nina?
Well, it's a long story, but at least I can say in America, since Ronald Reagan, we've been on a trajectory towards, and that ends with Trump. And it's happened because our culture is really very sick. I wouldn't even call it a culture. It's, you know, it's a Wall Street mentality.
It's interesting you
It's
mentioned Reagan because
colonial. Yeah, yeah,
when I
go
was
ahead.
a writer in New York City, starting in 1980, used to work with a
Hmm.
lot of different people who were making their money by writing junk, but pursuing other artistic careers. And one of them, who was a beginning accountant, we were at a party, and he said, "You know, Reagan's tax reforms, so called, that he's going to install." He said, "If these go through, in 40 years, you will not recognize this country." And
Yep,
it's
yep,
exactly 40 odd years now since he said that. And you know what? He's right.
yeah.
He's right. All the money has flown to the top, and the people are left to struggle for crumbs below.
Yeah, power and money has been consolidated. I was in group therapy in the village with this really great therapist who we were all young, you know, in our 20s. We didn't know much. And he had lived in France and Germany and other places. And um, after Reagan was elected, he said he was crying. He said, "You have no idea what this means," because he could see what it meant.
Yeah.
And we were all like, "Why is he crying?" You know? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
So the next poem is Death. Your life is your art. Your existence is a moment on this earth, a feat of magic. The stardust of eons, the brightness, shines in the hearts of those who remember you. You are still alive because I love you. You are still alive because I know you. How you speak and move and laugh, your hand over your mouth, every gesture. I can hear you laughing. I can see your face, even through the blackness of closed eyes in a dark room. So
Wow.
that reminds me of the saying that you die two times. Once when you die, and
And once
if
when
no
we're
one says,
forgotten.
yeah, right. No one says your name. Yeah. I don't know where, yeah.
Wow.
So um I
Could
think
I
about
ask
death
you?
a lot.
Could I?
Yeah.
Could I ask you to go back to a couple of poems earlier? There's a poem called "Beginning" because it
Oh,
beautifully expresses some of the more positive aspects of these discussions that
is
we're
it
having.
it's not in the is it in this
It's in Precession, number 9,
oh number nine. Okay. Oh, let me see.
page
Uh
15.
okay. Oh, okay, I'll read that.
Good.
Beginning. We are meant to be with each other in laughter and love, arms around us, crying in the hug, the circle. No holding back, not putting fear and pain in the anger box, letting sadness out like play. In comedy with community keeps the balance. She is the chief source of magical power, the XX. We all start out as female, but some of us lose that part of ourselves.
Yeah. It's tender and it's grieving and it's still looking forward into the spaces that we need to go to. Nina, you can see
Right.
why I am such a admirer of your work and your eloquence.
Thank you. Well, that reminded me, speaking of that therapist, when in group, um, he used to say, we'd say, how come you only have a few guys in the group? And he'd say, if there's more men, nothing happens because, and he included himself in that. And he said, because they don't, they compete and they don't um, share the way women do. Um, this is a generalization, of course, it doesn't apply to everyone, but there's a truth in that. And especially at my age, I want to be with older women for the most part in conversation because we can go from intimacy to intellectual concepts and self-reflection. And the tendency is to want to connect rather than compete, at least in my experience. Not for all men or for all women. That's not true. It's just a
And and as you say here so efficiently, we are meant to be with each other. We are
yeah.
social animals. We don't
Yep.
exist in our full humanity without other people. And once we give that up, we're on our own and completely vulnerable to every kind of cattle
Everything.
prod and
Yeah.
temptation and bad
Yeah.
incentive to behave in the wrong ways.
Well, I have chronic fatigue and a host of other ailments that leave me in my room. I've lost a lot of friends and connections, and I'm someone who thrives on being with other people. So my own particular situation is exaggerated by my illness, but it's also the culture, the society. I mean, people just don't, it's not the same as like it was in the 70s, at least in Manhattan in the
Yeah.
70s. There was so much more community. And growing up, there was so much more community. And my family sought out community uh, community in various ways. Like even when we went to summer camp, we went to a camp that included all ages. Anyway, um, and that's and I feel really bad for kids who have grown up through COVID and just and walking around looking at their cell phones, lonely and so lonely. It's just the way we live is it's
Yeah.
sick.
And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking back, I'm 71. We're both old enough to remember a different world, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
with all the elders in my family on the Italian side and the Irish side, what always struck me, even when I was a little boy, was how well these people understood each other, how much
Hmm.
they had learned to not be afraid of the fact that they needed each other. They went through the Depression together. They went
Yeah.
through the World War II era together. Then they climbed up into the middle class by hard work and study and cooperation. They had a great civic life belonging to various community groups and social clubs in the
And
local
also, it
town.
was intergenerational. It was
Yeah,
That's not like my daughter lives far away, my cousin lives far away, my sister. We're all divided, split up. And I know, I remember my mother telling me about her childhood in Brooklyn. All her family lived walking distance. So there was always intergenerational um, gatherings, and that's true for African American Black families in this country. But since rap deteriorated through Madison Avenue and into, ho, bitch, and all that kind of stuff, it's no longer grandma doesn't come to those gatherings. So
yeah.
it's really, um, yeah,
I'll tell you
like,
a quick funny story too about exactly that. When I was a boy, our family home was on a given street, and down the street, maybe 5 minute walk down the street, was the home of my mother's brother, Uncle
yeah,
Frank. He was a lawyer, very public spirited, jovial, funny, and he was a second father to me, right? And
yeah,
my mother would turn around one day from cooking at the stove and she'd say, "What are you doing?" And I say, "Nothing." She says, "Then you go down and visit Uncle Frank right now.
right,
Go
right,
down there
yeah,
for a half an hour and say hello. How are you? What are you doing this
mhm,
week?"
yeah,
And okay, okay. And I would. And I'd have a great time because he was a great
yep,
guy. But
yep,
without that teaching of you've got to invest yourself to spend time with other people. It's not about you, it's about everybody.
mhm,
And you can't
right, no,
lose in that proposition, but we need to be taught. And instead we're getting every bad incentive in the book to go
yep,
to a
yeah,
place that is not
we've
good
been
for us.
we're all isolated, divided, lacking intergenerational communication. Anyway, we only have a few more minutes left, so
Yeah.
let's see, what should I read?
How about never far?
Okay, well, it's the same
Yep.
continuation about never far. Everybody needs a mother's love to hold them through their lives of complication, a love that gets into the bloodstream and boosts the immune system, the magic spell that lasting bonds create. The beginning is like the end. The circle fits into the square shape of time passing in astronomical proportion. Now, let's see. Oh, we only have a few more minutes. I wanted to read one more
Okay,
that's
but
on the
I just
same
wanted to point
subject.
out first,
Oh,
there, right
yeah.
there at the end of that poem, is an appearance of the precession cycle, the
Yes.
great
Yes.
cycle that is so vast we're not almost not aware of it, but it is the whole turning cosmos right in ourselves and in your poetry.
Yeah, I'm so aware of that all the time. This one is called Fractured America, so that continues with the theme. This you are that I am. Believe. What facts are facts, and who asks the question? What nation is this now, if not fractured? Each age group separated, no flow of knowing and feeling for the other. Do you understand human nature before you enter the world? Who teaches you which influences to cut off? Who is thinking of the future for the grandchildren who will never know their own family? This is Logan's Run, and AI is destroying rivers. This is Soylent Green and Blade Runner. Cameras all over the sky, mirrors of you on buildings and in your pocket, alone, alone, alienated. So that it's the same, it's what we were talking about. I mean, that's on my mind all the time now. So
Yes, and how do you understand this contradiction, Nina, that again, the more the great heart of the change that has come in our lifetime, me and you, has centered around technology and
uh,
technologies that should be connecting us, improving our communications with each other. You should think in facilitating are to spend time together. But it's not working that way. We end up alone and alienated,
Mhm.
as you just
Yeah.
said. What is that dynamic? Is it
It's,
capitalism? What is
well,
it?
yeah. But even if it were, I mean, China has, you know, China's sort of communist capitalist, but it's the um, I mean, right now we're using technology. You're in Crete and I'm in Massachusetts, so this is a kind of connection that is beneficial. But what I see mothers walking around looking at their phones
I
while they're feeding
know.
their babies. That really makes me like crazy. Like, how could you do that? You know, or people just walking around like this. If I'm in the waiting room of a doctor's office, which happens frequently, everyone's on their phones. I'll say something to them, oh, I love your pants or whatever, just to start a conversation. I only say things that I genuinely feel, but it's amazing. People are so resistant to that now. And I grew up at a time where people talk to each other. And so, it's a slow process of consolidation of wealth, power, the introduction of technology for the purposes of control and surveillance and
And
warfare,
commodification.
modification. I mean, when I was a kid, my mother used to say things like, I wonder why these old cars that were built a long time ago are still on the road and the newer ones break down earlier.
Yeah.
Like that's the way she taught me how to think about things, you know, and built, I have boxes of connections to all my computers, and every time you get a new cell phone, it's a different plug. Yeah. So, that's capitalism and consuming all this stuff that is now just junk, plastic
Yeah.
planet.
Yeah.
Uh, so, the people who manage, who produce, not the people who invent, the scientists, the artists, but the people who manage this stuff and work and make millions and millions of dollars and have, billions even. Um, it just, I don't know. It's completely out of hand. We're at a point where I wonder, I don't believe in God per se, but if there is a God, if there was a God, what the hell did he make human beings for? Even though I don't want anyone to be hurt or suffer. And I think of the world my grandson's inheriting, it's like, it's
Right.
horrible, horrific.
Well, Nina, as our time goes, I'd just like to say to our
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen that are generously with us today, this is where we are. This, I think, is
yeah.
why our cultures turn to the poets to get
Mhm.
reoriented in some kind of human reality that's worth living in. And on
Yeah,
that note, let me refer people to the other video of our interview a year ago. It's built around the book called Ghost Dances,
yeah.
GHOST Dances, a fantastic collection of Nina's poetry that you mustn't miss. And you can find it right here online under the interview we have in the notes, okay? So, Nina, before we get cut off, I want to thank you so much for this great reading and discussion today, and I hope we'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Jack. I love talking to you and sharing, and I get excited by our talks.
It's always my pleasure.
Well, thanks. Thank you.